What up, though, Pride Nation? Welcome back. If you've seen the thumbnail, if you've seen the title, you know what's about to go down. I'm beyond excited. Every time I talk to this man, either one or two things gonna happen. One, we're gonna agree way too strong, or two, we're gonna disagree way too strong. But either way, we're gonna walk away with the same love for the Detroit Lions. I'm ecstatic. Today's guest, if you don't know, is someone who has created a system that I literally go through with a fine-tooth comb. I literally compare it. It is damn good. Like, it is really, really good. And if you pay close attention to the picture, you will see that there's a beautiful hat and the most gorgeous mustache you have ever seen. I am talking about one Mr. MathBomb. What is going on with you, sir?
Oh, man, good times. Getting ready for next week.
Listen, I'm so ready for next week because at this point, I feel like the Lions fans base is so broken up about where to go when it comes to the draft, what we should do, and it's all this different speculations. It's a million rumors, and so we gotta talk about some football. Now, generally, what I would do is a roll call and acknowledge those who's willing to rock with me. Let me make sure I hit on a few. We got One Pride 40 in the building, Looney Tunes, BD Buster, Delusional Lions fans, Jimbo G. We got Joey 2 times Angelo. Let me keep on going down. I don't see nobody else, but they're gonna be rolling in because they usually go on about 5. But anyway, we ready. All right, how you feeling today, man?
Fantastic. I'm down for football talk.
Listen, I don't think it's nobody on planet Earth who has been more busy than you. You have been on Pride of Detroit. You have been on Lions on the Prowl. And now you're joining me. And you're still pumping out your RAS scores on Twitter, the website. I mean, where do you sleep?
Not very much and not very long. Yeah, it's hard to find some time during the day. This is obviously my busy season. This whole next week and a half are going to be just bonkers. It's long days, and then once that draft is over, it's just going to be podcasts here and there, and hopefully I'll get to take a nap.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, let's get right into it. We got a few questions. We got a few topics we're going to talk about that I really want to jump into it. And each one are kind of leading. I'm going to be honest. They're kind of leading. But starting out, the first one is one that a lot of the Lion fan base often asks me. I see a lot of variant options out there, but it's simple. What is the Lions' biggest need heading into the draft? Because right now, it seems that mainstream media is pushing the idea that our biggest need is wide receiver.
Yeah, and there's two ways to look at it, right? So you're looking at what your biggest need is as far as what you have on your roster currently, what you need to fill your roster out with, and it's really hard to argue against wide receiver there. The Lions only have a couple of guys who are WR2s. They're not number one guys. They all have injury problems. Thankfully, they're all fast, but they don't have any long-term options at receiver, and they really need to get one. So from a short-term outlook, it's very hard to argue wide receiver is their biggest need. You also have to take into consideration that this is a rebuilding team. We are at stage 1 of a rebuild, just about to hit the draft of our first year in a rebuild, new head coach, new general manager, new everything. And that really points to me that you have to build a franchise, and that starts at the quarterback position. So franchise-wise, quarterback, immediate needs, wide receiver.
It's funny because I did not think that we were going to have a disagreement in that. I don't see us as a rebuild team. I don't. I actually think we're in renovation mode. That's how I see it.
Can't renovate a dumpster, man.
But that's my point, though, right? Like, how do you rebuild something that wasn't there?
You know, it's from the foundation, from the foundation up, man.
But with foundation, that's the thing I'm worried about. Like, I feel like when it comes to the foundation side of it, I don't see that with our team. I feel like we like. I noticed this yesterday. I was talking to one of the subscribers yesterday, and we were having an amazing conversation. And I noticed that the Lions seem to be heading in the right direction. They went from Jim Schwartz, who was a player's coach, to Jim Caldwell, who was a player's coach. And then they did a full 360 and went to Patricia, who I'm not sure what he is. Okay. So But now we're back to a players coach. so that's a good thing. I just don't know if I agree with the idea of rebuild. And for me, the biggest need to me is safety. But there's no safety worthy of being taken in the top 8, let alone at 7. Right? Like
not top 32, honestly.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like I can't think outside of once you go past Tracy Walker, who's our safeties? Like I don't really trust Harris.
No.
I think they got CJ Moore listed as a safety. I'm not sure why, but
he's special teams, man. That's all he
right.
is.
That's what I was thinking. So so to me, safety is a huge need, but we can kind of dial it back. And again, this is where I just look at these little pieces and I say, okay, what could really be the factor? So now I guess we can move to this next part of it, because this is obviously we know what the needs is. I wanted to kind of set the stage. Our foundation work is, you say, receiver is up there, obviously, depending on how you're looking at it. But what do you think? Like, based on what you're seeing, you've been doing this for a while. You've been in the game way longer than I have. But what do you think the Lions will do at 7?
Call me old, man. Jeez.
Not that. Oh, I mean, listen.
I've been doing this for. I've been just the Raz work. I'm on the 9th year, 8th or 9th year.
I'm only in year 2 of YouTube. like I've always been a football fan, but this is only year 2 of YouTube, and you are like, and I've been seeing your stuff for a long time. Yeah.
So what do I think the Lions are gonna do at pick 7? So what I think is gonna happen is I think that all 4 of those quarterbacks are gonna be off the board. The top 4 guys, I think they're going to be off the board. I think the Lions are going to be stuck picking between a wide receiver or a tackle. It's going to be an offensive pick. I don't like any of the defensive guys at 7. I don't think any defensive player is worth picking in the top 7. So I think it's going to be a wide receiver or a tackle. Jamar Chase is probably going to be off the board, and Penei Sewell is probably the other non-quarterback that's going to be off the board when the Lions pick at 7. If either of those guys happen to be there, that would be a great pick. That would be a fine pick. If either of those guys are off the board, we're looking at Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, or Rashawn Slater as the most likely options that the Lions are going to take there. And it's hard to go wrong with any of those picks. I mean, even though, as I mentioned, I'm for taking a quarterback if they can. The Lions should walk out of this draft with a premier player at 7, regardless of how those first 6 picks go.
Agree.
It's going to be very hard to walk away from this without getting a guy that immediately helps the franchise and helps them build long term. So that's something positive to look forward to, is that they can't screw this up.
I said that a couple of days ago. I said, I've been saying it over and over. I said it's not really much they can do wrong. I think there are 2 things that they can do that would cause some problems, but I don't even see that being an option based on what I've seen from this front office. I think they've shown some level of competence. But I'm with you. I'm thinking it's receiver or tackle. I think I called tackle months ago saying that, hey, we need to get an offensive lineman. And I honestly think that if they're sitting up there and it's between receiver and offensive lineman, and I'm going by history, and I'm also going to go by more proof that I just think is there, which Dan Orlovsky seems to know way too much that goes on with the Lions. They're going offensive tackle. Like, that's how I view it. And I think that's the most sensible, logical thing they can do.
It's boring. It's boring, but it's a smart pick.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's one of the things that's not gonna be the sexy pick, but I think that move gets you more wins than anything else we could have made at 7. And so for me, I just looked at it and I said, okay, we're going to be in a perfect position, because I know a lot of Lions fans wanted us to keep losing so we can have a top 3. I don't get. Listen, 1978 to 2020, the worst winning percentage, and we got fans who want us to keep losing. I don't get it. I just don't. It's
I never get that either.
It's mind blowing. So, we are now clear. We all been up to this. We are now clear on what we think that you're going to do. The question is, what would you do? If you're the general manager of the Detroit Lions, this is your chance to take over, and you have an opportunity to make the pick. What are you making?
So if one of those top 4 quarterbacks does fall, and specifically I'm talking about Justin Fields or Trey Lance, Lawrence is going to be gone at 1. Wilson's going to be gone at 2. So we're talking about the other 2 guys, Fields and Lance. if one of those guys does fall to 7, that has to be the pick if I'm the general manager of the Lions. You got to rebuild your franchise from the quarterback position, and this is just an elite group. You got to take one of those guys. I don't think that's happening, though. I think those guys are going to be gone. If Sewell falls to 7, I think you got to take him. Sewell is good enough that Taylor Decker, who's been a really good left tackle, if the Lions drafted Penei Sewell, Taylor Decker would be playing right tackle by the end of year 1. That's how good of a prospect that Penei Sewell is. But I don't think that he's going to be there either. I personally would probably take Devontae Smith. I know a lot of people have him falling down boards because of his weight, and I'm an analytics guy. I'm a numbers guy. He's 166 pounds. There's not a lot of data that says that you should take a guy, even in the first round, let alone that high in the first round, with that kind of a weight issue and a size issue. But his tape is just so fantastic, and I mean, he's got a great nickname too, the Slim Reaper. Hard to beat that. But I would probably take Devontae Smith if I could over Slater. And I really like Rashawn Slater as a prospect. I think he's a really good player. He'd start at right tackle from day 1. There's some talk about him spinning inside to guard, but I think he's an extremely good tackle, and he'd probably stick there. And with the Lions already having Taylor Decker, they ain't even got to move him anywhere. So they don't even run into a situation where they could potentially, mess up a position by moving a guy. So my move would be either Devontae Smith, secondary would be Rashawn Slater, assuming that the quarterbacks are all gone, Chase and Sewell are gone.
All right, so yeah, like I said, one or two things, y'all. Every time we talk, it's either a beautiful love of agreement or a disagreement. But so if the quarterback is there, you would take a quarterback.
Absolutely, 100 times out of 100. Doesn't matter who else is there. The group's just that good, and the Lions need one.
You think the Lions need a quarterback even though they got Goff?
Especially since they got Goff.
Okay, do tell me
why. They're rebuilding.
Yeah.
This team is building from a very weak structure. They have no significant wide receiver threat. Their offensive line has some good pieces to it, but as a full unit, it's not as good as it should be for a rebuilding team. They have some decent running backs in the backfield, but there's some durability issues, and their defense is an absolute mess. It's going to take years to clean this up, and Goff takes up such a huge chunk of the cap that they're just wasting space on a quarterback who's not going to be good enough to carry a franchise. He just isn't. He couldn't carry the Rams, who were built to win, and they were able to win enough to get him in the playoffs and even get him to the Super Bowl, where he basically lost it for him. This is not that roster. We don't have those kind of guys in the receiving room. We don't have that kind of defense to bail him out of trouble. He's going to have to carry a lot, and I don't think Goff can do it. Picking a quarterback means that you're not starting him year 1. Goff's starting no matter what in 2021, barring injury. He's probably starting in 2022 just because they restructured his contract and they can't cut him until 2023. But long-term for your franchise, you got to pick a quarterback if you can get one. And as I've mentioned before we started, the 2022 class does not look nearly as strong. There's no consensus number 1 quarterback in the 2022 class, unlike this year, which had 2 guys who are ultimately going to go in the top 5, and then 2 other guys who jumped up. There's nobody in 2022 who screams franchise quarterback to me. And you don't like to look ahead if you've got wants. You don't want to have to look ahead and be like, okay, how do I talk myself into those guys? It's tough. I just can't do it.
I think you can have Trevor Lawrence. I think there's one quarterback the Lions really like. I think they really, really love Wilson.
But for sure,
I think they really love him. I think he'd be the one if he failed there they would take. But he's not falling.
He's going to.
Right. It's no way that's happening. But I don't see any logical, sensible move to take a quarterback this year. You know for a fact that he's going to sit for at least 2 seasons. At least. Right? You got 2 first-round picks in next year's draft. You got 2 first-round picks in the draft after that. There's no real reason or no pressing need to go out and get a quarterback. This guy hasn't taken a snap with us yet. The way I view them using him is not as somebody who can carry the team, but more like as Troy Aikman, somebody who's going to be the game manager. Just simply don't mess it up for us. And when you go back and you look at the year that they did go to the Super Bowl, that's exactly what they asked him to do. Just don't mess it up for us. Manage the games. They ran the ball to death. When I saw that they added people like Jamal Williams, I said, oh, okay. I think that it would be the one mistake that could set the Lions back for years. I think if you take a quarterback in this draft, a pick that cannot help you win any games this year, that does not, there's no guarantee that he's going to be a hit. We've seen this before. I remember a lot of the Lions fans wanted Dwayne Haskins. A lot of people wanted Jamarcus Russell. And we've seen what happens with this formula. Our history says that we've been down this road before and that we probably should not repeat this. The same thing with the receivers. The last time the Lions, and I might be wrong about this, but the last time that the Lions selected a quarterback other than Stafford high in the first round around pick 7 was DeAndre Ware. So you're talking DeAndre Ware of 1990, and he won the Heisman. He won the Heisman that year, and he was a hot ball of mess. I just think that it would be a mistake on every level to do that, and then you got so many other holes. Like right now, the quarterback position is not a hole for the Lions. It's just not.
I think it is. Well, here's the thing that I disagree with you on. It's not about whether or not there's value there and all that stuff. The guys that you mentioned in all of those instances were guys that they shouldn't have taken because they were not good enough to play in the NFL. They were failed picks. They busted. If the Lions pick the right quarterback and he's good, it's not the wrong pick. It doesn't set the franchise back, even if he sits for a year. If the Lions had taken Aaron Curry instead of Matthew Stafford, they would have been wrong because Stafford was good and Curry was trash. And it's the same thing. It's the same thing with any time you're looking at picking a guy. If it's the wrong guy, you made a mistake. Whether it was the right position or not, you picked the wrong guy. It's bad. You don't want to do that. You don't want to pick the wrong guy. And that's the difference between taking a guy that has enough potential. And you mentioned in your question something that would set the franchise back. Picking the wrong quarterback in 2021 would set this franchise back. And I'm talking specifically about Mac Jones or Kyle Trask. And if the Lions took Mac Jones, you ain't going to see me for a week after the draft. If they picked him at 7, I'm going to be gone. I will be in a box somewhere. But if Mac Jones falls, which he should, he won't, but he should. Or if the Lions took Kyle Trask in the 2nd or 3rd round, light that pick on fire. It was a wasted pick. Just because they're the wrong type of player for today's NFL. You can't get a guy that can't operate out of structure, who has no real mobility, who doesn't have the arm strength to throw from any level. You can't take that kind of guy. So taking the wrong player is what screws you up. And that's why when you're talking about people want the team to lose, it's because they want that higher pick. That doesn't really matter. Picking higher doesn't matter. It's picking the correct players where you are picking that matters. And that's important about picking a quarterback, picking the right guy.
What I tell y'all, we either are 100% in agreement or listen. So I shout out to my homeboy SpeakEZ from SpeakEZ Sports. Easy seems to have a belief that the higher your pick, the better value you're going to get at getting the pick right. And I'm like, history don't say that. History don't say that. You have to still get the pick right. The only time that pick has value is if you trading it. And if you're not trading it, you have to get the pick right. Like you said, we could have went with Aaron Curry, a guy that a lot of Lions fans wanted. They went with Stafford. We would have been wrong if they went with Curry.
Or Sanchez. There was people that wanted Sanchez.
Oh, yes. I remember the Sanchez talks. Yes. I wasn't on YouTube then, but I do remember the Sanchez talks and me basically saying to myself, like, why? But Satin is, if they do Mac Jones, you're not gonna be the only one missing. Okay. Put me on the milk carton right now. It's done because I'm gonna be ticked off. If they force for some strange reason to get an edge rusher or something, I would be a little ticked off. But to me, the key word in all of that was if. And so if I got to go by the if term, the quarterback position is not worthy of me taking this year because I was all for the quarterback position if we cap Stafford. If you keep Stafford, I don't care if you took a quarterback this year. In fact, I predicted we were going to be in the top 10 if you gave Matt Patricia a 3rd year, which I knew we were because he was, he was different. I'm going to be clean today. He was different. But I also understand that the Lions have an opportunity to do something that is so different. And you know what that is? It's build the team. not build around Goff, not build around a quarterback, but build a team. So that way, when we plug people in, sort of to what Dallas did, Dallas was able to plug in Dak Prescott because the team was built. The line was there. The run game was there. The defense was somewhat there. I'm going to say it was there because it was totally missing last year with Rod Marinelli gone. But we need to build a team. We cannot afford to take a position when we got as many holes as we have at 7, and it's not a hole. Now, we do got a hole. Well, you see it because you don't like you said when we off air. You was like, if you got to like Goff, I'm like, no, it's not a matter of liking Goff. It's just a matter that I want Goff to take some snaps. Can Goff get some snaps as a Detroit Lions quarterback first before we start to go and get his replacement? I think that makes the most sense, and it's the most sensible thing to me. Quarterback would be a huge mistake. It just would. It would be a huge mistake because that word "if," right? Yeah. Like if I had a hat as cool as you and I didn't have the job that I have, I mean, like it would be great. But I think that taking a quarterback this year in particular, and yes, it's the other part of it is this. Now I probably should have asked you this. Do you expect for the Lions to have a lot of wins next year?
I don't expect them to have a lot of wins for the next 2 years, regardless of who the pick is. Whether it's a quarterback or anybody.
So if you like, okay, so if you're just picking it based on wins, how many wins did you give them this year?
It don't matter. They ain't gonna win many games this year, regardless of who the pick is. They could pick the best player in this draft. They could pick Trevor Lawrence, and they would still start Goff for 16 games and win none. They'll be lucky to get 3 or 4 wins next year.
See, I got them at 8 wins next year.
Hell no. Hell no.
Listen.
Hell no. Listen. This team ain't no 8-win team. Not with this defense and this crap quarterback. No chance.
I'm looking at our opponents, and it's one thing I had to look at is how they do the scheduling. The NFL is very intriguing, and when you dig into the deeper ends of it, when they do scheduling stuff. When it comes to scheduling things, I've seen them do things where they know it's going to make it harder on the favorite team, like have a team like, say, Seattle travel to the East Coast, like in the winter. Like we know what this is, right? Like, and so I see 8 opponents that I believe that we can beat. Even if they just split, let's just say they split the whole division, they go 3 right there.
I don't think they're going to win a single game in this division. Even against the Bears, who are absolute, they don't have a quarterback either. But I don't see how they're going to lose to this team.
So you see us basically getting swept all through the division.
I think they're getting swept in 2022 or 2021 by the division. I don't see any way they beat anybody in this division.
Then that's even more reason we shouldn't take a quarterback.
See, that's the thing though. You're looking at this year. I don't give a crap about this year. I'm looking at next year, the year after.
No, I'm looking. That's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at next year. I'm looking at next year. I'm looking at this year and next year. The moves that make the most sense is to take the offensive lineman because what
here's the thing. So like let's say you got your 2 picks next year and Goff doesn't work out. So we're assuming that Goff is bad enough. Let's say he's as bad as I think he is.
Okay,
bad,
all
right. Let's just make that assumption. He's bad. 2022 comes around. You now need a quarterback. You got 2 picks. Are you taking a quarterback with one of those picks?
Yes.
Right. Are you high enough to get one? If you win 8 games, you ain't high enough to get no quarterback. And if you want to get a quarterback, you got to trade up. So do you have 2 picks or do you have 1 because you need both of those picks to move up to get a quarterback?
Well, again, you got to keep in mind if let's say he is as bad as you are, you're picking high. Think about it. You're saying
here's the other argument. You're talking about building up the team. You got 4 first-round picks in the next 2 seasons. That's a hell of a lot of draft capital to build up your entire defensive line, the middle of your defensive line, fix up that secondary if you can't fix it up this year. This is a really strong offensive tackle class. You wait and get one in the 2nd round this year. That's a starter in this year's draft class. You're going to get a starter in the 2nd round where the Lions are picking, drafting a tackle. You get a starter this year, you don't have that offensive line need next year, and you got 2 first-round picks that you can work with. You can put that in linebacker, defensive end, defensive tackle, although this next year's class looks just as bad as this one, so probably not that. But you got a lot more team building capital if you have a quarterback that you can build around. and you've got all that draft capital to build with those higher picks, guys that you can fill the entire roster with. It's not you can't build the roster up if you draft a quarterback this year. It's just a matter of how you're spending your draft capital. And I think with this year's strength of this class being offensive tackle, the Lions have a rare opportunity, if one falls, to get a quarterback and potentially get a tackle and still be able to build that team structure up by the next couple of years.
See, I look at it like this. I think there's more than one way you can build a team.
Oh, yeah.
100%. Now, in case y'all didn't know, MathBomb really is a Lions fan. Like, he's not faking. He's not he's not here just being, being facetious. He's seriously a Lions fan. I think there's a number of ways you can build a team up. I 100% believe that. The problem that I have noticed has been the history, not with just the Lions, but in the NFL, is this idea of drafting the quarterback. And if they draft a quarterback this year, they're going to get pieces that they believe are suited to that quarterback, which is something that we've already done. We've tried this with a number of different quarterbacks. We're getting quarterbacks and trying to build around those quarterbacks. See, this is why I think that's the mistake. One thing we have never did is this. We have never built the offensive line up. We have never completed the trenches on both sides equally. And now you have an opportunity to do it. I cannot think of anyone that in my brain that I'm willing to take in the second round at offensive tackle. I just cannot think of anyone.
I can give you 6 names if they fall that I would take. You got so there's a lot of first round tackles. So if you get rid of the guys that are going in the first round, you've still got guys. Tevin Jenkins could fall to the second. I'm not sure that he does, but
he'll be a first.
Possible. He'll probably be a first round pick.
He'll be a first.
Jalen Mayfield is a guy that didn't test all that well. He's certainly fallen out of the first round. He's probably still no part. He might even go all the way down to the third round. Alex Leatherwood out of Alabama. Dylan Radins out of North Dakota State. Liam Eichenberg out of Notre Dame, although he's probably going to move inside to guard due to his arm length. I mentioned Jalen Mayfield. Spencer Brown is a really nice long-term option. Supreme athlete at offensive tackle. Walker Little out of Stanford has some injury issues. But as his tape from a couple of years ago was fantastic before those injuries hit, and he's a great athlete. And Brady Christensen out of BYU, who's another really, really good athlete. And every single one of those guys would start day one at right tackle. And if they didn't work out there, they could swing inside the guard because every single one of those guys has positional versatility to do so. Except for Brown. Brown doesn't.
Yeah, but my problem is this. My problem is this. Everyone you name, even Dylan, I think Dylan goes in the first. I think Liam, I agree with you. I think he's going to get kicked over to the guard. Leather, was it Leatherwood or Leatherhead? I forgot what his name is. That's Alabama guy. Leatherwood from Alabama. Yeah. No, I'm not. No. No. I have some serious concerns with him, but I mean, I get it. Let me see, who else you named? You said Little. I like Stanford because I really wanted the Lions to steal their head coach. I think he's going to be awesome if he ever gets.
He's never going to leave Stanford. We talked about this last time.
I know, man. I want it though. Can I dream? Can I just dream? I want that guy. How is he still winning at Stanford? You know how hard it is to get into Stanford.
That dude's getting paid. He's getting paid millions of dollars to live in Northern California and just recruit to go to Stanford.
It's crazy.
The easiest job in the world.
But it's still hard because you got to get guys with high GPAs.
Yep.
And that's doing like all these other community things. It's nuts. Like I saw the criteria to get in to be an athlete, and I was like, "Are you serious? How are y'all failing time?" Just another story. But you and I both talked about that before. We both know that it's not gonna happen. But I'm dreaming. Okay, yeah. I'm just saying. With Little, the injuries, I'm not playing these games no more with injured people. I need you coming in here healthy. Okay, and then Spencer.
That upside, man. Whew.
Yeah, but see, I don't have time for upside.
That's all we got. All we got's time.
Where's the sense of urgency?
Nothing's happening this year. There shouldn't be no urgency. This team, like I said, this team needs to plan. We need to look at this like the Carolina Panthers did when they started their rebuild, and it took 4 years for them to really start picking it up in the win column because they were so broken down and they had so many pieces they need to fix. Lions fans got to get that in their heads right away, is that this is going to take a long time. This isn't going to be 1 or 2 years. You're talking at least 3. It's going to be 2023, 2024 by the time this team is at least challenging for good again.
I think it's going to be quicker than that. I've seen teams go from worst to first too often.
Not with this kind of roster.
Yeah, but I'm going to tell you why. this we can agree to this, that a lot of defensive players are going to get pushed down to the second, third, and fourth round.
Which they should, though.
This year, right? But this year, that's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
So they're going to have options to find us that safety, because we need that for real. We need a safety for real. But they're going to have options to get the linebacker. They're going to have options if they want to add an interior defensive tackle. I personally wouldn't, but if they want to go that route, I would not.
Not in this class, man.
It's no reason to.
This class. The only thing that would make me take a defensive tackle in this class, and for those that don't know, I facilitate. I'm the custodian for the mock draft simulator at Pro Football Network. I've already started looking ahead at 2022, and the only thing that would make me pick a defensive tackle in this class is if I had to look at 2022 and try to pick a guy out of that class that I would take instead. And I might be like, well, I mean, at least this guy's somewhat okay.
He's the lesser of the two evils. Yeah, I just look at the Lions' history. We've tried the big name receiver before. We've gotten nothing out of it. Everybody talks about win-loss records with the quarterback, but before the quarterback even came here, we were 0-16 with a Hall of Fame wide receiver. And a lot of teams have tried this. I went through 10 or 12 years of drafts where the top receivers taken wasn't even the best receivers in those drafts. I think it was only two out of 10, or maybe 2 out of the 12. I think it was where the top receiver were the best receivers in it, but all the rest were like second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth round talents. And I'm like, this is nuts. I think Julian Edelman was like one of the best receivers in one of those drafts. Yeah, and he was a 7th round pick. So
and quarterback also.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
wasn't even a wide receiver yet.
That's what's even worse to show, like, that you should not take a receiver this high, especially with this year's draft. There's so much receiver talent that, like, I saw one of the tweets that you retweeted. I can't think of the guy's name. Jesus, what is his name? He had a chart that showed tiers 1, tiers 2, and it broke it down to like all the players, and you just see receivers galore. Like you can't miss on a receiver this year. So when I get through going through that, I say we cannot, under no circumstances, take a quarterback. We cannot, under no circumstances, take a receiver, because you're going to be able to still find a really, really good receiver in this draft. But I know that's something that's you, because you don't believe in Jared Goff. I'm just basically on the train of let him take a snap. I'll make my.
We all have to. He's going to. Like I said, no matter what, they could have the number 1 pick and take Trevor Lawrence, and Jared Goff still starting every game this year. It don't matter. They're paying him $30 million. He's playing quarterback this year.
Well, I thought he's getting only $5 or $9 million this year. With
since they restructured him, it's money he's already made, though. I mean, they've already paid him that money. He's playing this year. Right.
And that's another reason why I don't want to take it. Now, here's the other part I want to show you. This has been my way of showing proof to people. All right. I need you to focus in on this screen, because to me, this is a universal truth. And it's so true that it just happened recently in the Super Bowl. Can you see that?
Yeah.
There's option A. See, we're going to take Joe Burrow out of there, right? We're going to put whoever quarterback you want to put there. And we're going to say Sewell is whatever the top blocker is, so good protection. And you notice how whoever quarterback you want to put in there with good protection can throw the ball to anybody. But if you go out and you take the receiver, or you take the quarterback, and you got anybody protected, because our left side is the most dominant side for some strange reason. And everybody who played us realized if you shut the left down, we probably were in trouble. Okay. Looking at this, there's no way we should take a receiver or quarterback.
I'm going to point out a difference between this, though, and the Lions is that right now the Lions have good offensive linemen. They have Frank Ragnow, they have Taylor Decker, and they have Jonah Jackson. Two of those guys are fantastic at their position, and the third one looked good enough that we should be pretty confident in, right? That's 3 out of 5. The Bengals have 0 out of 5. In fact, some of their linemen were the worst in the NFL last year. You're talking about a franchise that gave franchise tackle money to Bobby Hart, who's one of the worst players in the NFL, let alone one of the worst starting tackles. And they gave him a ton of money. They have nobody. The Lions, they got nobody at receiver. They have nobody out there to throw to. They have some guys that played wide receiver too on their other teams who they're going to be like, well, you're our first guy now. That was their selling point to bring him here, is that they're going to get enough snaps and enough targets. But they probably don't deserve to get number one targets. They're not that type of talent, or they're hurt all the time, like Perriman. Perriman's dealt with injuries his whole career. So the difference between teams like that is the Lions already have some linemen. They've got at least a strong enough lineman to build a core out of. And in fact, the Lions have invested a ton of offensive picks in the first 3 rounds to offensive linemen for the last decade and a half. There's nothing historically to state that the Lions should build from their offensive line outward if you're just going by Lions history.
And the last decade?
They have burned picks, man. Oh, yeah, look at it, man. Taylor Decker, 1. Frank Ragnow.
Graham Tomlinson. 3.
Lincoln Tomlinson, 3. Graham Glasgow was a 3rd-round pick.
No.
First 3 rounds. First 3 rounds, I said.
Oh, you said the first 3 rounds. Okay, because I thought you were saying like in the first round. Because I'm like, in the first round, in the last decade, we only got 2.
No, but that's still it's still 3, right? Still Tomlinson, Decker.
Yeah, but the difference is this. In this case, here's the difference. The difference is, in this case, I just want to point your eyes to this. In this case, because this is the same way that these Bengal fans are thinking is how the Lions fans are thinking. And I'm thinking, y'all crazy. That guy sitting up there with a cool scar, not as cool as your mustache, but it's a cool one, right? Because he wants Jamar Chase. He's literally pounding the table for Jamar Chase. I can't have a franchise quarterback without protection.
You don't have a franchise quarterback. I mean, you don't have one.
But here's the problem. When we had one, he never got protection.
They tried, though. They kept pumping picks into that offensive line.
But trying is not enough. Right now, you have an opportunity to not only try, but to just actually do. If you get that
you know how? You hit on those picks, just like I said about the quarterback. All you got to do is pick the right players. Graham Glasgow was a 3rd-round pick, and he was the right 3rd-round pick. Jonah Jackson was a 3rd-round pick, and he was a good 3rd-round pick because he started immediately and did well. If you hit on your picks, you're doing the right thing. It's not a matter of you got to get the highest pick to protect your guy. You got to get the right picks to protect your guy. And this is a really strong offensive line class because it's not just tackle. We got really strong guards in this class too.
Yeah, but they already said they're gonna move Big V over the guard, and the evidence suggests that he would be better there than he would at.
He was hurt enough last year. I'm not sure I'd write him off at tackle, but yeah, they do sound like they're putting him at guard anyway. But my point is, they don't have to. They don't have to. He can play tackle if they need to, and if they pick up a guy who can play inside and outside, they have that versatility. They like versatility just as much as the last staff did. Hopefully, they're just as good at evaluating.
Now, Benjamin Foe agreed with you. He says, but we don't have a Joe Burrow. You're contradicting yourself, Luke. And so we don't have a Joe Burrow. The Kansas City Chiefs have a Patrick Mahomes. How did he do in the Super Bowl without protection?
Yeah, you know how they got a Patrick Mahomes? They drafted him and sat him.
Right, but they sat him behind a guy that they knew was coming off of his contract with Alex Smith. They knew he was coming off.
Jared Goff's coming off in a year and a half. They can get rid of him after next year.
Nah. And on top of that, when they drafted Patrick Mahomes, that team was already winning 11 to 10 games before Patrick Mahomes even got there. So, you know, it's one of those things where before they even got close to that, it is what it is. Like the team was built for Patrick Mahomes to succeed in. His contract gonna ruin it, but I don't know how you're gonna keep that contract up and keep talent there, but that's another story. Let me move it a little bit forward though, because I do want to stick to the draft. Like I said, we definitely have different views when it comes to that. I just don't understand the logic of taking a quarterback or attempting to take a receiver, given the history. The chances of your player being a bust at receiver and quarterback is way higher than offensive lineman. And again, I'm like you though, where you got to get the pick right. 100% got to get it right. And if you don't, then it doesn't even matter. But let's talk about this though, because what is that one mistake the Lions can make this year that would legitimately set them back for you? I got two, but I want to know what you think is that one mistake they can make.
Well, I got 3. I already gave you 1, which was drafting Mac Jones. I can't even tell you how far that would set this franchise back, man. The second one, you mentioned building around your quarterback. I think if they did legitimately build around Jared Goff, as if they thought Jared Goff was going to be the franchise guy, that would set this team back, because I don't believe that he is. And building around Jared Goff as if he was a franchise guy sets this team back. You don't build around a skill set like that. You're going to get guys who won't function with a guy who can make plays on their own. So once you have to move on from Goff, which you will, you're putting yourself back. My other one would be drafting Micah Parsons at 7. I know that's not going to be as much of a popular one. I know he's got a lot of fans,
right?
And he's a popular pick at 7. But the Lions just came off Matt Patricia, who they failed to vet properly when they hired, and had a sexual assault allegation against him from earlier in his life. It was a huge fiasco, huge black eye for the franchise, made them look like garbage, and they got drugged through the mud for more than a year because of that, all the way up until the point where he was fired. And you got a guy coming in with Micah Parsons with a laundry list of character issues, and including sexual assault. Now, this isn't something that he was convicted of. I'm not trying to go out here and say he's absolutely did all of these things, but he wasn't cleared of any of those things either. True. They were just dropped because it was basically a he said, she said thing for that part. They couldn't go any further. But after the Lions got drugged through the mud for more than a year through the Matt Patricia stuff, picking a linebacker, which isn't a high-value position, in the top 10 to build around is not smart to begin with. Picking a guy with that kind of character issue right after they went through all of this crap with Matt Patricia is just going to make the Lions look like garbage. And because they're also going to lose a bunch of games next year, it's going to continue. Rebuilds are tough. You need whatever signs of positivity that you can get. And I think drafting a guy without a high value that high in the draft, who comes with a whole bunch of baggage, you're setting your franchise back, because you're going to have to, it's going to take a longer time to build, even if he hits. And you're going to constantly have that cloud hanging over you that your team just doesn't care about those type of things.
Plus, I think about what our head coach said about the no turds. And so to me, this is what I don't understand, right? Okay, I have made a video about this, basically said that Jared Davis was elite. I got told I was crazy. I think it's funny. Film tells me everything I need to know. But everybody who said that they hate Jared Davis, I'm like, you do realize that Parsons is the same player.
Like, same role, yeah.
They did the same thing. They wasn't covering guys. They were sent on blitzes. I mean, they're essentially the same guy. And then on top of this, the more I look at some of the things that they said about Parsons, I got that feeling of Reuben Foster, another guy Lions fans really wanted. Yeah. That I said he reminds me of Reuben Foster in that light. So it's one of those things that I just look at and I say, yo, for me, that the two that I think you can do is somehow, some way, for any logical explanation, deciding that we need to somehow force a defensive lineman in here. I would
not in the first. God.
Yeah. You talking about missing. They gonna have, Bermuda Triangle missing, abducted by aliens missing. Like I'm gonna be out. I would not be able to tolerate that. And then to me, the biggest thing you can make is that quarterback, because if they're going to be as bad as you say, and a lot of people believe that they're going to be as bad, I think I've seen like at least 2 or 3 different articles from different people from that all agree that we're probably going to have the first overall pick. And I'm like, that's
betting favorites right now for the number 1 overall pick. Us and the Texans.
Which is why I find it intriguing as hell. Like they act like the Texans and the Jets ain't terrible. I don't understand this.
Yeah,
but whatever.
Jets are getting a quarterback, so that's always exciting. You're never going to be the betting favorite if you get a hot, sexy quarterback.
Yeah, but you and I both know Vegas ain't in the business of losing money. So if they're putting it out there, so, somebody gonna lose some money. It's probably not Vegas. But to me, that quarterback, if we end up in a situation similar to what happened to the Cardinals, where they end up forcing it and taking Josh Rosen, and then ended up with the top pick, and they're like, oh, so we can get a Kyler Murray. Well, I guess we're going to have to trade Josh Rosen. And they got literally peanuts. That's a waste of a pick. It's 100% waste of a pick. I don't want to be in that. I think that sets us back further. I think with the capital that we have, you can literally essentially let this quarterback be here for the next 3 seasons, draft your guy by his 3rd year. He sits for a year, and boom, we out of it. Again, you got to get the pick right.
I'm going to break you in just because I don't know how much you've looked at that 2022 class, but let me say that. Let's look at that and say that happens. Let's say the Lions do get a quarterback with their first pick and they end up with the number 1 overall pick next year. You know what they're picking? Because it ain't going to be a quarterback. They're going to go out and run to the podium. The pick's going to be in like 3 months before the draft, and they're going to get Kayvon Thibodeau and get their double-digit sack guy from the moment they walk off that field. That's what's going to happen. The Lions end up with the first pick next year.
Great.
And if they skip a quarterback and they get a tackle, they're going to do the same thing, but they're still not going to have a quarterback.
No, they'll have a quarterback because you're asking the guy that you have to just manage. Listen, listen, Rex Grossman, Jake Delhomme, Brad Johnson, Trent Dilfer. Who did they carry? Right? Like, I'm not even being funny. These guys didn't carry even Peyton Manning when he went to that Super Bowl, stunk it up to high heaven. That's how he knew it was time to go. He just didn't have it no more. He stunk it up. They still won because they had defense. I have always been a big component in that no one man wins this game, and especially not at the quarterback position. Quarterbacks need help. Lamar Jackson had one of the most prolific seasons that year, and they tried to say, oh, he didn't have enough receivers. And I said, no, you shut the run game down. Things get different for the quarterback. You got to have balance when you're doing this thing. When I played, we ended up going against this one team, and this team would run the ball probably 70% of the time, which in college just a lot. Like, yo, they just pounded it. And I would be so exhausted as a linebacker, like, yo, can we do something to get them out of this run? Like, so to me, I got 3 running backs, Kerryon, Jamal Williams, and Swift. All I need Goff to do is just to make a few passes here and there. The same thing that Prescott was asked to do. And the rest of it will work itself. Troy Aikman ain't never carried the Dallas Cowboys. I don't even know how he made the Hall of Fame other than the fact that he got those rings. But he never carried the Dallas Cowboys. And so to me, I'm just saying, even if they do come out and take that D tackle, because, you know, I'm always team defense, but but it still serves the point to say that you got more time to evaluate things and work through COVID and other situations where you don't have to force it this year.
Let me point something out since you brought up Grossman, because I knew you were going to bring up one of those guys, but it's interesting you brought up Grossman. The Bears went 13-3 when they went to that Super Bowl run, right? They went 13-3 with Rex Grossman at quarterback. You know what they did the following year?
What's that?
They went 7-9, worst in the division.
Yeah,
they weren't in the playoffs for another 3 years. It wasn't until 2010 that they made it to the playoffs again. It's not sustainable to try to build a team without a quarterback. You don't build a team without a quarterback. You can't. The Rams were smart enough to recognize that when they ditched Goff and got Stafford. They knew that they weren't going to get that high again if they tried to rely on him for another season. They knew they had to go out and get another guy, and they were willing to sacrifice multiple picks to do so.
Listen, make no mistake. Make no mistake. We are not in a disagreement about that. I'm in an agreement, like you said, to build it totally. But if we're talking about one mistake that can set us back, the quarterback does, because he doesn't help. He doesn't increase your win-loss total at all this year.
If he busts, it sets you back. If he doesn't bust, how does that set you back?
It sets you back because he's not going to play for at least 2 years.
Who cares? If he doesn't bust, if he's good enough, who cares that he didn't play the first year? Nobody cares that Patrick Mahomes didn't play his first season. He's an NFL MVP. He won a Super Bowl.
Yeah,
don't care that he didn't play the first season. He sucked in both Super Bowls, and on top of that, he went to a team that went 11-5. That team was winning. Our team ain't that.
Which is why I don't see why we should go out and get the quarterback versus doing what Kansas City did. Kansas City built the team up to be able to succeed. That's why they was able to unplug Alex Smith and plug in Patrick Mahomes.
They didn't build a team. You already said they had a team.
No, but they did, because before Andy Reid got there, they was going through hell. Andy Reid got there and changed that. They went out and started bringing in all kind of offensive linemen. He took a whole bunch of damn running backs. I mean, a whole bunch. And he took a bunch of receivers. And he stuck with the plan. And it's ironically, now that I think about it, it's very similar to what the Lions is doing. He had a bunch of guys on 1-year deals. And they went out and added help. They had a few linemen already that was already there. And he added some more linemen. So yeah, they did the same thing.
I ain't lying. I'm hoping they do build the team like the Chiefs did, because that means they do draft a quarterback instead of buying Goff.
Yeah, but they will only do that. They will only do that if they will only do that after allowing for the quarterback to lose the job. It's Jared Goff's job to lose rather than to just take it away. A lot of Lions fans seem to think that Jared Goff was just this constellation that we needed to have to get the picks. No, they asked for him.
Well, yeah, Holmes evaluated. See, that's my real worry about drafting a quarterback. Isn't even about if they draft a quarterback. It's how they evaluate a quarterback, and we'll talk about that with some of the other positions that are much better than quarterback. But Brad Holmes, his ability to evaluate quarterbacks is not good. His list of quarterbacks that he has valued, the guys that he's pounded the table for, ain't good. Jared Goff, Sam Bradford, and whatever that third round pick that had like negative 804 rushing yards. Sean Mannion.
Sean Mannion.
Yeah, negative 804 yards rushing in college. That is I think that's legitimately impressive. That's my bigger concern isn't about if the Lions draft a quarterback, it's how they evaluate him, which is why I'm so glad that they brought in Dorsey, why they have Anthony Lynn. I'm glad they have Dan Campbell. The stuff that he said about quarterback means way more to me than the fact that Holmes' history is bad. My issue is that he has been bad at evaluating, which is why I'm so worried that they would build around Goff as if he was a franchise guy. Because you don't even think he's a franchise guy. Like you said, he's a game manager.
Yeah, he's a game manager.
At best.
But you can win with a game manager. But I also that's why I said I don't think they should build a team around Goff. They should build the team.
So somebody asked it, why do I hate Goff? I don't. Yeah. I think he's a really nice guy. I'd love to meet him and hang out with him. He probably wouldn't want to hang out with me. I talk numbers too much. But he didn't win way more games than Stafford. He was on a team that won more games than Stafford. The Rams had the number one defense in the NFL last year. You could have put anybody on there. They did actually throw some schlub out there because they benched Goff, and they still won with some schlub out there. Goff was a part of that team. The quarterback is an important part of a team, but if you got a number one defense, there's a lot of things you can do. The Lions are so far away from being in a position where they can be like, we don't really care about quarterback right now. This roster is so much farther away, and building up around a guy who can't elevate your team, that's problematic. That's why I'm worried. It's rebuilding.
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement with you. I don't think we should build around Goff, but I do think they should build a team up. And another example, and I did forget that they did bench Goff last year. But again, when you got a team that's built already, that's plug and play, and who is their number one receiver on the Rams?
When Goff was winning, it was Brandon Cooks.
But if you go through and you look at all those picks that they had and how they've had success and where they were doing things, they're not expending top picks on receivers or quarterbacks and stuff like that.
One of Brad Holmes' best positions to evaluate and evaluate is wide receiver. So that's if we're going to talk about wide receivers. I know it feels like I'm just bashing on Holmes. I'm not. There's a lot of really good things to like about him. Wide receiver is one of those because, and this will make you a little bit excited too, is that Holmes hasn't valued wide receivers very highly.
He shouldn't. The history tell you don't do it. History say don't do it, and it's. But I am comforted. I am comforted by the idea that there is a Dorsey, there is other people who have done this before that he can lean on, and there is this conversation of we need to come to a consensus. Unlike what happened last year, where you got a scouting room who want Isaiah Simmons, a head coach who want Derek Brown, and a general manager who tells them to hold his bat. I'm going to take Jeff Okudah. You can't have this happen where you have these three different ways of thinking and act as if though we're going to have success. And so I argued with people before, and I said, look, the Pittsburgh Steelers, I said, I still don't know who the hell this Dustin dude is, whatever his name is, but they were still winning, and they was down to like the fourth or fifth quarterback. So it's just, that mistake to me scares me. I want the Lions to be in a position to do it. I think they can win this year. And if I'm wrong, we got a top pick. We take a quarterback next year or that D tackle, right? And you still good because you got 2 firsts. You got room. The last time we had 2 firsts, we came out with Stafford and Pettigrew. You know what? On second thought, that Pettigrew part does suck. I get what they was trying to do.
He didn't though at first. He broke Charlie Sanders' receiving record twice.
Right.
Pettigrew gets a lot of hate because he dropped a lot of footballs. I get it. Totally get it. But if you look at Brandon Pettigrew from a pure value standpoint, it wasn't a bad pick. I know people hate that because he was so loathed here. And everybody loves Hawkinson because he's a goofy guy or whatever. But before the injuries, Brandon Pettigrew was trending very well. And Matthew Stafford loved Brandon Pettigrew. He loved throwing to Pettigrew before he got hurt. And then he tore his ACL and injured. He had a high ankle sprain or something like that. He got all hurt, and then he couldn't catch and couldn't run, and that's kind of a deadly combo.
Yeah, listen, he was brought here to be a blocker too, and I don't remember him blocking nothing. Nothing.
No. He did it first, and then that went away too, and then it got really bad. And it was like, did you forget how to block guys? So somebody had mentioned that the 2023 class looks good, and that's right. The 2023 class does look a lot better than 2022,
which we got 2 firsts in.
Yeah, but again, if this team is trending upward, if Brad Holmes is as good as a GM as a lot of people think he is, that I think he is, Lions aren't going to be picking high enough to get one of those guys. And if they want one, they're going to have to spend capital to move up and get it.
Well, you know what? If you get the team built, then then you will be doing exactly what Kansas City did. I spent capital to move up to get my guy because my team is ready. That's just the reality that we see it. Let me ask you this. We talking about the general manager and things like that. How do you grade the Lions offseason thus far?
I'd give it a B-. Obviously, I wasn't very high on the Jared Goff a part of the acquisition. Trading Stafford, it didn't matter. That was going to happen. He wanted out, and the Lions are good enough to their people now to allow that to happen and to trade him. So I'm not a big fan of the Goff part of that acquisition. The value that they got back in trade, like we mentioned, you got multiple first-round picks. They got an extra third this year. Plenty of value to work with, and they need draft picks right now. They've only got 5 or 6 in this year's draft, so they really need it. A lot of their pickups were 1-year deals, just regular generic guys. Most of their picks were good because the guys that they picked up were worth picking up. Even though they aren't high value guys and they're not supreme tier guys or really good guys that are just kind of waiting for their turn, like when they got Golden Tate. None of those guys are like that. We've got 1-year deals on guys who are probably only going to be here for that 1 year. But they're broke. They've got no money. They took on a huge cap hit to pick up Jared Goff, and they were already dealing with a pretty limited amount of money. So they didn't really have the money to go pick up any big-name free agents. And I think they did good with the amount of money that they had to pick up the guys that they did. I didn't like keeping Nick Williams over Danny Shelton. Danny Shelton was better, and I think that you can get a guy like Nick Williams at any point in this draft, which is, again, a weak draft for defensive tackle. But I don't agree with that decision. I don't agree with everything that they've done, but I feel like they're trending in the right direction, and a lot of the personnel decisions that they've made have been really good. Almost every personnel decision that they've made I've really liked. I think the only one I didn't really care for was the special teams guy. And
Khalif Raymond?
Yeah. I don't remember. Those are 1 or 2 guys I didn't really care for. But all the other pickups have been really good options. Not just because they're up-and-coming coaches. They're guys that have a lot of potential to do well. But because I think it's a good sign for what the Lions are going to be looking for from the players that they're picking up. And what I think they could do schematically. Like picking up Antoine Randall. That's a big deal, not just because Randall is an up-and-coming coach, but because he comes from a program that has a long history of finding players, valuing players correctly. He's got a better understanding of those type of things, and he's a versatile guy. Antoine Randall can play multiple positions. Really good sign for what the franchise is going to look for in their players and how they're going to value them. So I'd give it a B-.
Yeah, the Nick Williams one I feel bad for because I predicted he was going to either have to take a pay cut or be cut, and I still think he took a pay cut to be cut. So unfortunately, he'll be gone. I just think he will. I mean, you figure you already got Brockers, you already got Panasini. And then they're going to be able to still pick up some named people and undrafted free agents. I think they should take a gander at Maurice Hurst, because I think he's a guy that got versatility, play DN, play D tackle.
I don't know if Lions still have the same medical staff. Lions were one of the teams that flagged him medically in the draft. So if they still got all the same people, I'm not sure they're even going to look at Hurst.
Yeah, but I think the difference is it's a difference between drafting a guy and being able to sign him to a conditional contract.
Yeah, but it's also whether or not they think that he's gonna die if he gets hit on the field.
True. Now this question comes from C. Perry. He says, at MathBomb, how do you like talking football with non-national media /fan guys? That's the first part of the question. And then he says, and we would appreciate it if you shout some of these guys out. Much love, bro. So how does it feel talking to people who obviously ain't mainstream media, who are fans just like you, who, especially me, I'm like, you are a numbers guy. I'm all about the film. Like I don't. You can give me every number. I'm like, oh, okay, that's interesting, and I will follow it up with the film every step of the way. But how does it feel talking to these, like, these non-mainstream media people?
I love it, man. It's a totally different structure when you're talking to national guys versus talking to folks like you and everybody else. I love every chance that I get, every opportunity that I get. You mentioned the Lions on the Prowl guys. I was with them just a week or two ago. It's a lot of fun being able to jump on this stuff. But because I've been transitioning away from covering just the Lions, a lot of the people I've been on haven't been Lions podcasts. I was on a Bills podcast just a couple of days ago. I've got one lined up for the Packers and the Colts next week. The Saints next week I have one lined up with. It's a lot of the guys that are starting to get more nationally, which, oh yeah, big time. But it's the same type of fan base stuff too. I have done some bigger national stuff. I was on the New York Giants official radio station this year, which was really cool. I get to do some of the bigger stuff, but I've always loved getting down and dirty with the fans just because the structure is different. You get to lay loose, you get to lean back in your chair a little bit and just chat football. It's always the best, man.
All right. Well, I want to kind of scramble through a few. You got a little bit more time for a few more questions?
Absolutely. I got time.
All right. This one right here is the one I've been waiting on. I've been waiting to get to this one so bad. Please give me one player that the Lions should be taking. And this is solely based off of your scale for the F, like just somebody we can get, but they're in the late round. Not first, not second, late, that you like, hey, Lions should be looking at this guy. He's going to be a steal.
So I'm going to cheat a little bit. So you mentioned guys that have a high RAS. So I'm not actually going to give you a guy with a high RAS. I'm going to give you a guy that I think they're going to look at anyway, despite not having a high RAS. And I'm actually going to give you two.
Okay.
Because I'm really cheating. So I mentioned that Brad Holmes, there's a lot of positions he's really good at evaluating. One of those positions is safety. I keep mentioning that there's evaluation and valuation. And one of the things that Brad Holmes has been really, really good at, and it's hard for me to say, it really, really is boring. I need a better thesaurus to figure out what kind of expletives I can use. He's been so good at identifying talent at safety in any round and being able to know that those guys are going to be there when he picks them. And one of the tactics that he does to do that is finding guys who meet certain athletic thresholds but aren't necessarily elite athletes. They don't necessarily test all that well. And he's still able to pick them up in the later rounds because they fall because of that kind of stuff. And one of those guys is Elijah Molden, a cornerback out of Washington, being viewed by a lot of people as a nickel in the draft. He was injured at his pro day, so he didn't actually finish his pro day, and he didn't time all that well. I didn't expect him to time all that well. I expected him to be one of those guys that Holmes would look at. Because what Holmes generally looks at is not just, did he test well overall? He looks at, is he explosive? Elijah Molden is explosive. Is he fast? He's not fast. And that's not a negative. That's not what he's looking for. He's looking at, does he meet at least a basic threshold for speed? He does. Does he have a good 10-yard split? And like I said, Molden was hurt, so he didn't really have an official 10-yard split for his run. But I feel like Molden would have been one of those guys that didn't run a good 40, but did have good splits. And I think that's the type of guy that Brad Holmes is going to look at. Another guy for the exact same reason is Trill Williams out of Syracuse. Trill Williams is another guy who didn't have a great 40-yard dash. He ran a 4.59, but he had a really good 10-yard split at 1.56. That's really good and had really good explosive drills. Those are the type of guys that he's looking for. Both of those guys are corners, but those type of testing is what you look for safety converts, guys that you can move to free safety and pull them back because they can cover a lot of ground quickly. So even though they don't have that ridiculous long speed, they can cover a lot of ground quickly. We keep talking about that game speed stuff. Holmes has found a way to identify those types of guys, and that trend stood up his entire time he was with the Rams. I think those are two guys that he's going to look at in the mid to late rounds.
So you can't see my face. I know it looks stonewashed right here, right? It's dead serious. But I did a video yesterday, and I was basically doing my safeties. And so one of the guys that came up that I've been paying attention to a lot is Elijah Molden. And the reason I've been paying attention to him so much is because I said, like, this is another thing that's going to sound crazy. I believe Okudah's better served to play a safety. He's just struggling with the NFL speed and how people are. They're not even running routes; they just running past them. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. But granted, it was his first season, nagging injury, whatever. Elijah Molden is in that same mode, but the difference is what I noticed with him was, especially when you talk about that 10-yard split. I think I showed in my video where the way he covered ground and the amount of power that he brings when he tackles you. Oh my! Hey,
if you liked Quandre Diggs, you'll like Elijah Molden. He plays with the same type of fire. He's a littler guy, kind of like Diggs was. Diggs kept getting shorter. I don't know if you guys noticed that while he was here. Depending on who you ask, the longer Diggs was in Detroit, the shorter he got. By the time he left, I'm surprised he was 5'5".
It's funny. It's funny because that's another topic we had yesterday where I was talking about Diggs, and I was like, look, they moved this guy like Diggs, and they was like, Diggs only 5'8", and they was talking about the safety Adrian Washington, and I said I just don't see the value of Adrian Washington because I know that the receivers just in our division are big. they're really big, and I don't see him. I didn't see him consistently enough jump up there with the big receivers. I didn't see it. And then he had the help. He had the help of what's the guy? The Moore.
Yeah, Trevon Moore.
Yeah, he had the help with that guy. So I just didn't see it. But man, yeah, when you said Molden, I was like, yeah, that guy right there, he got my attention real hard. He's a guy I really like. I'm also a big fan of Andre Cisco.
He's hurt. He's hurt though. I'm not sure whether he's even going to play this year. Probably go on pup.
You think he did? I forgot what the injury was. I thought they said it was just. Let me take it back. Depending on your source, I saw one source that said it was an ACL. I saw another source that said it was a minor bone in the foot. Are you hearing more that it's an ACL?
Yeah, he tore his ACL back in October. I'm pretty sure he's not gonna. He'll definitely start the season on pup. I'd be surprised if he doesn't start the season on pup. And you wouldn't see him until week 6 or 7 anyway.
Well, that just means he's probably a better 3rd-round pick, and I still would take him. He just want the ball. Like 13 interceptions. He just want the ball. But those are two guys. Okay, the second one, I never thought about him from Syracuse because I was so dialed in on what Andre Cisco was doing that I couldn't see nothing else. I had blinders on, and if you don't jump off the page when I'm looking at somebody else, it's not gonna happen. What happened with Molden is I was looking at somebody else, and then I just like, who in the hell is this safety? Like, and I'm like, wait, but it's not even a safety at the slot corner. I'm like, are you serious? Dude is just 100% aggressive. Let me ask you this, okay? I mean, well, you pretty much answered this earlier, but I'm gonna skip down to this one. So we clearly at a point where, the Lions got to make a decision in the draft. But if there's just one position, you don't even got to give me the name, just one position that we got to just 100% stay away from at 7, what is it?
I mean, I could cheat and just say defensive tackle because there are no defensive tackles that I would take anywhere. There's only one I'd take in the 1st round at all, and that's just an outside chance, which is Barmore at defensive tackle. Ain't nobody else I'd take at 7. I wouldn't take any of the linebackers at 7. I really like the linebacker class, but I wouldn't touch any of them that high.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I feel like you'd be better served waiting it out because half of them, if not more than half, are going to fall to the 2nd and 3rd rounds, and so you're not going to really miss anything if you decide to just wait on it. For me, that one position is probably DN. If I hear the word edge rusher, I'm going to lose it.
At 7? No.
Well, it's a small group. It's a small group of people who really like the guy out of Miami, Greg Russo.
No, he's fallen, man. He's more likely to go in the 2nd round than pick 7.
There's no way I would touch him. There's no way.
Jalen Phillips, also from Miami, probably the best pass rusher in this class. And if he had clean medicals, absolutely I'd take him at 7. But he don't, and I'm not sure I'd take him in the 1st round or the 2nd round with those kind of injuries.
Well, we gonna have. It's gonna be some interesting names coming up. I know another open topic that came up was about primetime games. How many primetime games did the Lions get this year?
Yeah, I'm sure they'll luck into one where they're facing a team that got a primetime game.
The Rams the Rams game going to be one. It's definitely going to be a primetime game.
Yeah, but there's no games that the Lions are commanding because they're a good enough team to play in primetime.
I got us with at least 2 to 3 games.
I don't know why you'd want to see him in prime time.
Well, you got to keep it. Where I said 3 because the 3 is a strong possible. But I know that there's going to be 2 primetime games. You're going to have the Rams 1, and then Thanksgiving is automatically a primetime game.
Yeah.
So that's 2.
Oh yeah, I mean, counting Thanksgiving. I mean, we kind of that's cheating a little bit.
I'm just saying. Listen, I'm all about forward thinking. If you're not paying attention, it's not my fault. You know, I'm just saying. But you're right. I think it's going to be at least 2 to 3. The third game that I think is going to be a primetime game is a game that I don't even think people probably thought would be a primetime game, but I think it will end up being a primetime game. And that is a game against the Jacksonville. I think they're going to make that a primetime game for 2 reasons.
For Lawrence
and Urban Meyer. You got to forget he's the other wild card. So I think that's going to be one of those primetime games.
I'm still surprised they got him a head coaching job in the NFL, but we'll see.
A lot of Lions fans wanted him here.
I know, but they shouldn't have.
I said the same thing. I was like, dude,
one of his first moves he made was hiring a guy that he immediately had to not hire because it was that strength and conditioning coach out of Iowa who just got fired for that whole nonsense. Like the first thing he does is like, what can I do to make myself look really bad? And he went out and did that.
Technical Puma says, is Thanksgiving considered a primetime game? Hell yeah,
that's cheating. That's cheating a little bit.
They're trying to take the game away from the Lions. It's so primetime. Yes, it's a tradition. It's been around for how many years? I forget. Dr. Detroit says for him, he's going offensive tackle, wide receiver, quarterback, tight end, linebacker at 7 in that order. I didn't see the mustache perk up, so that must mean like, no, we got to go. If one of them quarterbacks fall, we got to go there. Let me ask you this. If you had an opportunity to be the general manager and you can base your entire draft based off of your RAS scores, how would that draft look? Just give me the first 2 rounds. Give me the first 2 rounds. I'm curious how that would look based off of the RAS score.
So I would, and you'd end up taking Creed Humphrey with your number 1 over your 7th overall pick, which is a center, which is a weird position to pick that high. Creed Humphrey is fantastic, but he's scored the highest RAS for a center ever, so you'd end up taking him. Your 2nd round pick would end up being Spencer Brown, which I already mentioned he's probably an option in the 2nd round anyway. Brown might end up sneaking into the 1st round. I don't think he does personally, but it's totally feasible that he could do so. I'll skip over Cosme because we already took a tackle. Your next pick would be awful. No, I'm going to cheat. I'm going to cheat because there's 2 of them. There's 2 of them, so I'm gonna skip the one because he would be terrible. You have 2 cornerbacks, one of them with a 9.99, the other one's also got 9.99. But one's awesome and one's awful, which is J.C. Horn out of South Carolina, and then Marco Wilson, who's awful out of Florida. I've never seen a player more hated by their college fan base than Marco Wilson.
I swear, yeah.
Guy.
Yeah, I got a friend who lives in Florida, and it's almost like you can't even say that name.
No, it's like I posted cornerbacks like a week and change ago, and I'm still getting people going out and being like, "Oh, screw that guy, he's terrible." Da da da. It's like I get it, you guys don't like it. You'd probably get Baron Browning next, the linebacker out of Ohio State.
I'd be happy with that.
I'd be totally happy with that. Let's skip down to positions we ain't got. Jonathan Marshall, defensive tackle out of Arkansas. You'd end up with him. Position we didn't get. We already got all these ones. A lot of offensive linemen, just because it's such a strong offensive line class. And then Kenny Nwangwu, one of your first late round picks would be a running back. Kenny Nwangwu out of Iowa State. And I know I'm pronouncing his name wrong. I apologize.
I can't pronounce nobody's name right. I'm sitting up here right now in my head practicing what's on the screen. I know who the player is. I know he was number 15. Man. I know he's at USC.
Wait till you get next year, man. Wait till you get next year. We got a guy next year named Marquaviest. He's not a little Marquavy. He's the Marquaviest.
Marquaviest. Okay.
Yeah. After that, you get Jacob Harris, who's a wide receiver out of Central Florida. Probably going to switch over to tight end. But what's interesting about him is he's a big receiver, big, tall receiver, 6'5", 219. But he ran a 6'5", 1.3 cone, which is nuts. Like at any size. If you were 5'7" and $150, that would be a crazy 3 cone time. For a guy that's 6'5", that's insane.
Right. No, that is. I'm just thinking to myself, like, 6'5", and you got to do a little bit more bending to get around them corners.
That's a lot of bending, man. So that's crazy talk. So you end up with some good players in there, and some guys that are a bit more developmental, guys that you probably shouldn't have taken there otherwise.
But I think it's interesting because I think people would love to see that mock draft based on the RAS score. So Deuce D Nero says safety. I'm not going to play with his name. He's number 15.
It's pronounced just like it's spelled. It's actually not that hard. Talanoa Hufanaga or Hufanaga.
Talanoa. Okay, so I just botch names so much I just don't even try it. I botch them all the time. Here's my honest opinion of him. I would not take him to be my safety, but as a linebacker, I think he's going to be unfreaking believable because you're going to still get some of the coverage skills. You're going to still get the aggressiveness that he brings to the table, but I have him listed as a linebacker. I don't. The idea of him as a safety, I've seen too many games where he's so aggressive he's gonna probably kill himself. It's ridiculous. Like it scares me at how, and he has a number of injuries because of this. Mm-hmm. Like he tossed cautious to the wind to try to knock somebody out, and so for me, due to the injuries and the fact that I've seen him go, when those top end receivers get by him, he's not able to keep him from going over the top. I would make him a linebacker. What do you think?
I think he's a safety just because he's way too small to play linebacker. Even in today's NFL,
6'1", 215.
He's not even 200 pounds.
Huh?
He's 199 pounds. That dude is. Like
is that what they said at the pro day?
He plays so aggressively that he does look a bit bigger on tape, but man, he is not a big dude. Yeah, I wouldn't play him at linebacker. Even if he put on some weight. The NFL has been trending towards leaner linebackers, and that's definitely an option. But I think that's too lean, man. That's too small for me.
Well, you got to keep in mind, I'm also looking at the idea that you can put weight on him. They did this before. Brian Urlacher was skinny and lean. They put weight on him, and he's a Hall of Famer. They have this, they've moved those safeties up. You've seen people like Sean, what's the damn dude from Cincinnati? Crable.
Crable.
Yep, the other guy that was on Arizona that came from Washington State, Deion Buchanan, who moved from safety to linebacker. So, yeah, you could put weight on him. I just need him to slow down because, like I said, for me as a linebacker, he will be lights out. They've moved Mark Berrien. They've done this before. Let's keep this going and get it done. I think that would be the best way to go about doing it. I don't know. That pretty much was my last question for you. I don't know if the chat got a few questions they want to ask because I'm seeing a few questions pop up in terms of some of the fans. I gotta go back and find it. Let me see. Where is it at? So a bunch of them, and that right there is my son. I guarantee he's probably gonna come and ask for some cookies that I've already told him he cannot have. Like I've already told him he can't have those cookies. He does not care that he can't have them.
I saw somebody mention about trading Tavai for a 3rd round pick. You're not gonna get a third for Tavai. You'd be lucky to get a 5th round pick for Tavai. 5th round pick is your going rate for a failed 1st round pick. He's a failed 2nd round pick, but he was so bad last year. I'm not sure he even has that much trade value. He just doesn't fit most schemes in the NFL. I mean, you're only going to trade him to Miami, New England, or what was the other team? The Bills liked guys like that. So you've only got a couple of teams that you could trade for. Another really good question I just saw. So thank you for that one. Asante Samuel is a great question. I love Asante Samuel, and every other team in the NFL does. Every team in the NFL loves him. He's met with all 32 teams, about a quarter of them twice.
Listen, I've been taking some heat here from some people who was like, man, Asante Samuel, man, he is not good. I'm like, what have you been watching? like I love what I see out of him. He's aggressive at the line of scrimmage. He's always fighting with the receiver. I enjoy what he do. I think he's going to be a good prospect. Some people just think they like the speed. They think Patrick Surtain is the NR be all. I like Asante Samuel Jr. I love what he's doing.
We're not going to pick Surtain, not with what the Lions have. He's an outside corner. Lions have 2 outside corners. They really need a nickel. Cornerback in the 2nd round makes a lot of sense. Asante Samuel Jr. can play corner and he can can play nickel. He can play outside at a pinch, and he can drop back into safety if he needs to. I really like his fit here. But again, there's a lot of competition for Samuel. He could honestly sneak into the first round. I don't think he does, but it wouldn't surprise me with how many teams want him to see that happen.
Yep. Jimbo G says, Luke, do you see my 6 picks? Offensive tackle 1, 2 wide receivers 3, and 2 safeties. That is 5, and then a cornerback. Yeah, I need a linebacker in there though. We need to get another linebacker.
Several.
Yeah.
I like the other picks though. I mean, the Lions need a tackle. They need several receivers, and this is a strong class to get receivers. You know, if the Lions walk out of this with a De'Ami Brown or Kadarius Toney, one of those yak guys to really open things up. Because again, I'm assuming that no matter what, Goff's going to be the quarterback anyway, so it doesn't really matter. You got to get a yak guy. They've got a couple of deep guys. Get some yak back there. If they walk away with one of those guys and then maybe a bigger receiver, Tamorian Terry or one of those type of guys later in the draft, that's a good enough haul. You get your extra types, your different types of guys. I think that's a good way to build your team out. And then they need a safety, and they're probably going to need a nickel corner. So you're hitting the right needs.
Right. Yeah. Like I said, I just would probably take one of those receivers out or one of those safeties out for a linebacker. I need that linebacker because at this point you basically got Collins, Anzalone, and then Tavai.
That cliff happened quick, didn't it?
Dr. Detroit says, Matt, who do you want us to grab more than anyone?
So I'm still going to go quarterback, which is Justin Fields. I think that Fields is he's my number 2 player. He's the guy that I want them to grab more than anyone. But I don't think it's an option. I don't think the Lions have a chance to grab him any more than I think they're going to get Trevor Lawrence. So if we skip those guys and we're looking at those guys that I want to go out and get, gosh, there's so many guys that I really like in this draft class. So Jamin Davis out of Kentucky, talking linebackers, probably going to go in the late first round, if not there, early second round. If he's there in our second round pick and they're not sprinting to the podium to pick him up, they've done something really wrong.
Yeah.
Incredible athlete. If they don't get him, Baron Browning, same story, slightly lesser player. Both are really, really good options, and I think they fit this defense really well. They fit a lot of what they want to do, range and speed. I really like those 2 guys, and I would love to have them on my team.
All right, one of the greatest names I ever seen. God, coffee, and football. He says, "What is your strongest position?" I guess they're saying like the position group on defense in this draft.
In the draft, it's cornerback. Fairly comfortably. There's a lot of really good cornerbacks in this class, really athletic guys. A lot of different positions or different types of corners in this class. Different guys you can move around at nickel or move back to safety or keep on the boundary. Really strong class from cornerbacks and outside of the first round as well. Greg Newsome from Northwestern is probably going to go in that late first round, early second round area. I prefer him on the outside, but he's a really good nickel option, and I think that the Lions could look to him if he manages to fall to him. Similar to Davis, I'd be sprinting to the podium to take him. It would be the best kind of nightmare to have to choose between those 2 guys with a Lions second-round pick. We already mentioned Asante Samuel Jr., and there's other options the further you get. And then those 2 guys I mentioned earlier that could flip to safety. A lot of really good options at corner.
Okay. Looney Tunes says, is there anything y'all see us doing between now and the draft? No. I think they're waiting to the draft to make their next move. Which makes sense. You got a little money left. You got undrafted free agents coming. Once you get that part squared away, you can go back into free agency and then look and see what you want to take. And then at that point, you're still in a good position. So, yeah, I mean, I don't see anything happening, to be honest. I told you people hate him. I told you people hate him. I
don't know why. He's fantastic. And it doesn't matter if people hate him. The NFL loves him as a player, man. Like I said, every single team has met with him at least once, and a quarter of the NFL at least has met with him twice. So it's not going to be. Don't be surprised how high he ends up going.
Listen, I'm just putting it out there. Hamden says, what do you think of taking Memphis quarterback Brady White in the 5th? That name does not ring a bell for me personally. Do you know anything about him?
Yeah, Brady White, he got a little bit of hype early in the when the season was first starting. He's got some quick feet. He's not fast, but he moves pretty quick in the pocket. He's not a big guy. He's only 6'1", 210. He's kind of smaller. He's got a decent arm. I don't view him as much of an option for a developmental quarterback. There's hardly anybody to develop. This quarterback class is strong at the top, and then it falls off quickly, and it doesn't pick back up. We might see fewer quarterbacks drafted in this draft class than we've had in like the last decade. There's very little talent outside of those first 4 guys.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of like and then like the only other quarterback that I would even be willing to take, who I think I would give a chance to develop, would probably be Mills. Once we get past Mills, I'm a little shaky with the rest of the names.
Yeah, I'm not much of a fan of Mills either. His injury history is really long. Doesn't have the greatest arm. He's a straight pocket passer. Those are the type of guys that Holmes really liked when he was helping do personnel for the Rams. But it's not the type of guy that Campbell has said that he likes. It's not the type of guy that Dorsey has liked. It's not the type of player that Lynn has liked. They like guys that are able to sling it and got some mobility. Outside of the first round, you're looking at Kellen Mond and Jamie Newman. And
I hate Jamie Newman.
Newman has below the neck. He has everything you want from a quarterback. Great arm, fantastic mobility, quick feet, really good runner. Everything below the neck. But like
I love how you did that. Below the neck.
Everything up here, man. It's just there's just not a lot going on. And I'm not saying he's stupid. It's just that he doesn't process very well. He makes a lot of bad decisions. He goes from being quick trigger to staring down his receiver seemingly every play at random. Doesn't seem to have a good internal clock.
The touch on the ball is even suspect at times because he overthinks it. And it's funny. It's funny because when I did the Andre Sisco film study, 2 of the interceptions Andre Sisco got was from Newman. And I'm like, you stared the guy down. You stared him down.
Look, my worst, man, is if the Lions somehow got Kyle Trask. Kyle Trask is one of the worst quarterbacks I've ever evaluated. He's just so inaccurate.
You think he's worse than Christian Ponder?
He is way worse than Christian Ponder. Christian Ponder could at least move. He could at least move. No, man, it's really a testament to how good Kyle Pitts and Kadarius Toney were that Trask is even viewed as draftable, because the amount of off-target passes that Trask, he made everybody's job so hard at Florida. But he'll probably end up in the NFL, and he'll probably start a game here and there just because they like really tall quarterbacks, and they'll talk about how big of an arm he has because he's tall, not because he actually has one.
Interesting.
He's terrible. There's not a lot of good developmental talent in this class at quarterback, unfortunately.
Jimbo G says, Luke think I'm crazy getting the third for Divide, but Holmes could make it work. We've been robbing people this year. This is true. You was one of the few people who told me we were going to get more than the first for Stafford. And I was like, but he asked for a trade and he's older. And who's going to do it? I had no way possible to think we were going to get 2 firsts, a third, and a quarterback replacement. Didn't see it coming. So you could be right. Lucky Toberich, he says, why is everyone down on tackle Matt Nelson? Converted DN that's only 25, played good at right tackle for 277 snaps. For me, I think it boils down to consistency. It wasn't consistent. It just like he had some games where I was like, oh yeah, dominate him. Yeah. And then he had some games where I was like, okay, you still learning. All right, cool.
really good developmental talent. Fantastic athlete. Perfect positional convert that Lions took advantage of. I don't think he's there yet. It's not a matter of being down on him. He's not starting in 2021. And I don't know that he would even be ready by 2022, but not everybody starts right away. Some guys are late bloomers. And I think that the fact that they're continuing to develop Matt Nelson is a really good sign. And he's shown a lot of really good development. Long-term, not a bad option, man.
Okay. All right. This is going to be our last question and we're going to get out of here. This comes from Jimbo G. He says, at MathBomb, I'm Lord Jesus. At MathBomb, who you think we should take at wide receiver and why? I got one name that I think no matter what happens, I don't care how I go down, we should take this dude. There's just one name. I want to hear who you say first, but I got one guy that I'm like, yo, we got to get this guy.
Well, I don't want to cheat because I already talked about how much I like Devontae Smith. So I won't cheat and say Smith again. One guy that I would really like him to take. That's tough. There's a lot of guys in this class. Like I said, it's a really strong wide receiver class. A lot of really, really good athletes. So I'm gonna say Dyami Brown, because I think that the value is going to be right for where the Lions could end up taking him. He's very similar to Kadarius Toney in that he's really good after the catch. There's a lot of stuff that he does with the ball in his hands. Has some trouble getting the ball into his hands sometimes. He's had some drops issues. But Dyami Brown is extremely dynamic when he gets the ball in his hand. He's a very good athlete. Kadarius Toney's probably going to go quite a bit earlier than Dyami Brown does, I think. And I think that Dyami Brown is probably going to fall to a spot where the value is going to be really, really good for him. Similar to how the Lions drafted Golladay in the 3rd round, when a lot of people were saying that he should have been a 4th-round pick. I think that they're going to get Dyami Brown in that 3rd round. I think he ends up falling all the way to that 3rd round, and the Lions jump on him there with one of their 3rd-round picks. I think the value is really good. He would immediately start here and could potentially push for wide receiver 1 in this wide receiver room if they didn't take a wide receiver with their first pick, which I'm assuming is the assumption here.
Yeah, I like Marquez Stevenson from Houston, but my number 1 guy for me is Amir Smith-Marset from Iowa.
Yeah, he's a lot of fun.
That dude, to me, if swag was a real sauce, it's dripping off of him. Like the way he plays, the level of aggression, the way he attacks the ball, the route running. Yeah, that's a guy that I think I would love to have. I think we might look up and can get him probably 4th, maybe that late 3rd, probably. But God, I like that dude. I really do. Listen, it's that time, people. We're going to go into our final thoughts. I could not thank this man enough. I told him before he came on that he reminds me of Watson from Sherlock Holmes. I'm just waiting on Sherlock to come out, but the dude is awesome. Man, thank you for coming on, for rocking with me, for talking some Lions football. I do know you are going to be all over the place, and I try to follow you. I'm not a groupie. I like people who are smart. That's all I'm saying. Even though you want a quarterback.
I know I'm pretty, but I don't need no groupies.
Give the people your final thoughts, man, before we get out of here.
So a lot of people give me that I'm super negative about the team, mostly because I'm not a big fan of Goff. But there's a lot of really good things to be happy and excited for the Detroit Lions going forward. Holmes wasn't my first choice for general manager, but he is a really strong choice for a general manager. And most of the personnel decisions that he's made have been really good because they don't just play to his strengths. It's not like Matt Patricia, where everything he did plays to the things that he thought he was good at. Almost every guy that Holmes has brought in has been somebody that challenges him in the way that he normally thinks. He brought in Dorsey, who's completely different from an evaluation standpoint to how Holmes views value of players, the types of players that he looks at. He got a guy that's going to challenge him in the room. We haven't really had that in a long time. We didn't have that with Patricia and Quin. We didn't have that with Caldwell and Quin or Caldwell and Mayhew, and we didn't have that with Schwartz and Mayhew. They've always been guys that complemented each other and didn't challenge each other. You mentioned that you had a lot of different voices in the room last year when it came to their 1st-round pick. You're going to have a lot of voices in the room in 2021 when it comes to who they're going to draft and how this team is going to be run. But it's a really strong sign with the type of guys they brought in that by the time it comes game day or the draft, when they're actually ready to make that pick, that they have a unified voice in that room that understands what the plan is, what the goals are, and what they're trying to do with each of those picks. There's a lot to really be excited for when the team's going forward, building that way and trying to build it up. I'm still going to complain if they make a pick I don't like. But from a team building perspective, having a lot of different voices in the room that challenge each other, that counter each other, that's important. That's very helpful because you never want to be the guy that talks yourself into Tease Tabor having speed. You want to be the guy. You want to be the guy that says, maybe not. Maybe we should reevaluate that. You want to have guys that challenge your way of thinking. It's important to have guys that disagree with you. And I think Holmes understands that more than his analytics knowledge, more than his ability to break down tape on defensive players and find guys with value in the later rounds. More than any of that, I think having a guy, a general manager for the Lions, who understands the importance of disagreement is huge for this franchise going forward. So my final thoughts is that it's okay to disagree, and I think the Lions understand that.
Yeah, 100%. As y'all saw today, we did not agree on every single thing. I enjoyed every bit of it because it was respectful. He didn't call me an idiot or stupid or think that I was out of my mind, and I didn't think he was nuts neither. I understand his perspective. But you know me, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, I got to put this announcement out there. We have nailed down a day for my brother's funeral. It will be tomorrow. So I will not have a show tomorrow. So I will be back with you guys on Monday with the film study. Because like I said, I want to still knock out the groups of film study for that time before the draft. So you'll have that. Secondly, I end every show on a positive note. We don't do it no other way besides this way. Today's positive quote comes from the internet because I could not figure out who said this, but I thought it was awesome. It's not who you are that holds you back. It's who you think you're not. Let that sink in for a minute. It's not who you are that holds you back. It's who you think you're not. If you think you are not worthy of that job promotion, you would never get it. If you think you are not worthy of having an untoxic relationship, then you're just going to have a toxic relationship. If you think that you can't be your own boss and run your own business, then you will forever be a worker. Whatever you believe that you are, you will be. So guess what today's challenge is going to be? I challenge you to think that you are that entrepreneur, that you are your own boss, that you can have an untoxic relationship, that you can be a better you today than you were yesterday. I'm challenging you to not worry about what you are not. Worry about what you are. You are still here. You are still breathing. You still have the wherewithal and the wits to make a decision. There's no loss in failure. Failure is nothing more than a lesson and a swift one that sets you up for a bigger plan. People, I challenge you to simply get out of your head, because if you're going to be in it, you might as well make it a comfortable place. And with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, please make sure you hit that like, subscribe, and notification bell. If you have not checked out my man MathBomb on Twitter, it is linked in the description. I made sure I put it in there so y'all cannot miss that. And if you have not done anything else, don't be no chump. Please do your research. We are out.